Hey, it's Vanessa the Crafty Gemini, and in this video tutorial, I want to show you how I like to make my fleece fringe pillows. For supplies, I'll be using a 14-inch by 14-inch square pillow form. You could make your own, but I have a few of these on hand, so we'll use them. Then for the fleece, you need to cut the fleece bigger than the pillow form you're using, so I chose to go with 18 inches by 18 inches. Now have a look at your fleece and make sure that you are looking to see which is the pretty side, because we need to layer up the two 18-inch squares so that the pretty sides are facing out. So my lower square, I'm going to flip it so pretty side is facing down on my work table. Then the top square needs to be pretty side facing up, because we're not flipping and turning this pillow cover. It's going to be sewn just as you see it here. So align all four sides and let's move on. I like to use a good quality 100% polyester all-purpose thread in a matching color, and then I typically use a rotary cutter, but scissors will come in handy for this project as well. Grab some plastic sewing clips and your sewing pins if you have them. Then you'll also need something to mark your fabric with and a sewing machine. With my squares positioned with wrong sides touching, I'm going to cut out 2-inch by 2-inch corners on all four corners through both layers. Now notice that I'm using just the tips of my scissors to cut out these squares. You don't want to use a rotary cutter here because you don't want to run the risk of cutting too far into your fabric squares. So make sure that you are staying right to that edge and just cutting out 2 inches by 2 inches. Now let's put some sewing pins through both layers of fleece about 2 inches in from the outer straight edges around all four sides. Now we're getting ready to sew, but let's pay attention to where we have our cutout from the corner, and the stitching is going to have to stay to the inside of that innermost cutout corner, because otherwise if you get near there you're going to end up with a hole in the corner of your pillow, okay? So we're going to come stitching down this way and then stitch across, pivoting before we reach the cutout square corners, if that makes sense. We also need to leave an opening here in the middle, I would recommend, of one of the straight sides so that you can stuff the pillow form in there. Now I'm going to do about 8 inches. I'm marking an area here that I'm going to leave open, but really it's going to be easier if you can leave a smaller hole. It will take you a little more time to stuff the pillow in it, but it will make it a lot easier for stitching it closed in the end. So I'm going to come down here and backstitch to stop at the top of where that opening is. I'll leave that area unstitched and pick up on the other side, backstitching, and then continue pivoting before I reach those cutout corners. Now, so we don't have to eyeball where exactly we're going to be stitching, let's go ahead and mark out. This is going to be about 2 inches in from the edge because we're going to stay just to the inside of the 2-inch cutout, remember that. And I'm just going to take my Choco liner here and draw my lines so that when I'm at the sewing machine, I know exactly where I need to sew. So I'm going to come straight down, stop just before that corner, and then pivot it. And this is going to make it super easy for me to follow my chalk lines and stitch it down correctly. Alright, so here's where I'm stitching. I backstitch at the beginning, come down and pivot. Remember, avoid the corner, stay to the inside. Go up one side, pivot, across the top, pivot, down the side, pivot, and backstitch right there on the other end of that opening. Now my opening here, again, is 8 inches. It's going to be easier to stuff the pillow in because that's a pretty big opening. If you can leave yours to be about 6 inches, that would be better, makes the last step easier, but the hole still needs to be big enough for you to squish the pillow form in there, okay? At the sewing machine, I leave the needle in the center default position, and then the straight stitch length, I'm going to lengthen it a little to 2.4 millimeters. Okay, so this part of the stitching is done. I went around these 3 sides here. On the 4th side, there's a little bit in each way with an 8-inch opening in the middle of that 4th side. So now we're going to take our pillow form and squish it as best you can. Just squish and stuff until you get the whole thing inside. Now I like to punch down the pillow form to pretty much distort it and get it squished onto the back half of the fleece pillow cover. And then I'm going to grab all my layers here, align the raw edges, and we need to stitch this area down. So it is helpful to put in a couple of pins here, at least 2 or 3, to help hold the layers together so you can take it to the sewing machine and carefully stitch it to connect your starting and stopping points from the previous round of sewing. And this is obviously going to be the trickiest part of sewing here. That's why I mentioned that if you leave a smaller hole, it'll be easier because you have less of an area to cover. But I'm showing you here how I do it. I'm going to start where I stop stitching to leave the hole. I'm going to back stitch there a little bit, and then I'm going to go little by little, holding the 2 layers together, making sure everything is aligned, smoothed out, squishing and pulling on the pillow if I need it to help feed it through a little bit easier, and just work with it. It's only going to be about 6 to 8 inches of space, and you can totally do it. And you can see I'm coming to the end already here. When you get to the last pin or so, you'll see where your stitches began, and then you can see, okay, I only have a couple inches to go. I'm going to go over those initial stitches by a little bit, give it a couple of back stitches to secure, and then cut my threads. And because the fleece is so puffy, those stitches kind of just blend right into the fabric, so even if you're off by a little bit, it should work just fine. Squish that pillow form back into shape in there and grab my scissors so we can cut the fringe. I like to cut my fringe at 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch wide. Make sure that you don't actually cut into your stitches. Just stay on the outer edge. And once you work your way around all 4 sides, cutting up your fun little fringe edges there, that's it. Your fleece fringe pillow is complete. Now we know that fleece comes in so many fun colors and designs, prints, so this is going to make a great item to give as a gift. You could sell these at craft shows, and of course they make the perfect home decor item for your home. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more tutorials from me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.